Shadow of War. The Middle-earth series from Monolith Productions and IUGO were violent and bloody video games that featured a unique take on Tolkien lore. Shadow of War used the state-of-the-art Nemesis system, which created specific rivalries among the player and NPCs. However, the siege system wasn't quite as refreshing. Shadow of War had a main campaign to complete before the player was forced to embark on a consistent line of sieges. As lead character Talion, gamers had to both defend and capture territories. It was a long and grueling process, which many gave up on. Many average players sacrificed Talion's ending, preferring to drop the title rather than embark on repetitive gameplay. Cuphead. Studio MDHR's Cuphead is so popular as a concept that it has already garnered its own strange animated adaptation. However, the old-timey arcade title is incredibly difficult. Many of the platforming levels take a lot of practice to complete, but the boss battles in particular seem impossible. Cuphead doesn't allow players to pass through each level on an easier setting, meaning there is no way to navigate the game without facing its full might. Elden Ring. Elden Ring is one of the most difficult games of its year. Developed by From Software Inc., Elden Ring is complicated, dense, and unyielding. A massive map, intricate lore, and incredibly powerful bosses ensure that there's plenty for the player to get stuck into. But Elden Ring's sheer size has meant that many players haven't actually made it to the end yet. It's easy to see how gamers might get sidetracked by Elden Ring's incredible side stories and world exploration. The estimated hours an average player would need to put into the game doesn't take into account everything else that could distract them. Elden Ring's richness is to its detriment when it comes to getting to the finale, and mainstream fans simply won't have made it close yet. Flappy Bird. Flappy Bird was more than a fad. Dong Nguyen and Gears game was incredibly challenging. The mobile title asked players to move a small bird across the screen, ensuring that they avoided the green pipes that stood in the way. A hit could mean game over very quickly. Flappy Bird's level of challenge meant that very few people got to see a final boss battle with the video game character Mario. What's more, Flappy Bird was taken off the market due to its addictive nature, meaning that even fewer people would get to experience the ending. RoboCop. RoboCop is one of the most iconic weapons in video game and movie history. He is a complete tank of a being, and video game fans were thrilled to see that they would be able to control the Man of Justice in the RoboCop video game from Ocean Software, Data East, and Titus Interactive SA. But RoboCop was barely finished by anyone on the Commodore 64 because the game was flawed. Although the experience has been different after the bugs were fixed, the fifth level led to an impossible timer situation that protected RoboCop's later levels, which were corrupted. A glitch could allow players to bypass level 5, but the levels beyond were a mess. Sifu. Sifu is such an imaginative concept, but mainstream players are having real difficulty completing the game. In fact, it's perhaps one of the most complex games ever made. Every time the lead character dies, they age a little more. The older they get, the more likely the player won't see the end of the Sloclap title. Of course, there are plenty of talented Sifu players out there that have managed to complete the game, but when looking at its overall sales and the number of people that have attempted to play Sifu, it's clear that many are falling by the wayside in the opening levels. It's an ambitious gaming journey to embark on. Arkham Knight. The Batman Arkham series from Rocksteady are massively popular, and plenty of people have completed the first two games. However, Arkham Knight boasts a secret ending that is only unlocked once every criminal is apprehended. In theory, this isn't too difficult to do, and there are those big fans that have seen the story conclude. However, Batman Arkham Knight had a huge audience, and only a small proportion of that group would have seen the cutscene. That's because the tasks that have to be completed mean gaining 100% on the game. It's rare that average players look for 100%, especially when there are Riddler trophies to hunt and Batmobile battles to complete. The grind is just too much for most people. Time Crisis. Arcade shooters were always difficult to complete, and Time Crisis spent its heyday in this format. The Namco title has led to a huge spin-off series that paid homage to the original, but the game's mechanics made it very difficult to progress forward. Firstly, Time Crisis didn't make it very easy to discern how much damage the player was taking. Secondly, its cover system led to a steep learning curve for players who were not used to the concept. Combine this with the limited amount of time someone would get on the game back in the day, and it all resulted in very few people getting to see the conclusion. Battletoads. Battletoads had a simple but effective story and chaotic gameplay. Developed by Rare, the beat-em-up was fast-paced and definitely difficult to play through. Many have opted for co-op play to make the game easier to beat, but friendly fire meant that even more problems arose. Battletoads leaves very little room for error, meaning that that a level has to be played a handful of times before the gamer truly understands how to progress. The learning curve is massive, and it takes so much time to therefore reach the ending that few have lasted so long. Ghosts and Goblins. The Capcom arcade Ghosts and Goblins is absolutely infamous for its difficulty level. It's so beautifully made with amazing visuals and an inventive concept, but that doesn't make up for the fact that its gameplay is so complicated that very few people manage to see its finale.